Yeah.
So, Dave, give me so far your assessment of AEW so far, the good and the bad.
Wow. Okay, so I think that I think that like from a match quality wise, it's like it varies in the sense of some matches are absolutely incredible, and all matches are very, the guys are very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a lot of movement, but some of the guys are very green, and sometimes it can be very sloppy and inexperienced, and other times it can be absolutely fantastic. The promos, for the most part, are great because they concentrate on people who are good promos. I think that Jericho and Cody have really shined as performers, MJF as well as a promo. And most weeks the show flows. Sometimes when I watch it, you'll have these things where it starts out good, but then it sometimes drags. And I worry about, in this day and age, some of the performers. Sometimes when I watch it, I think, people are going to be shutting the channel off during this segment, and often, in fact, most of the times, that's what happens. So it's tough to build a company from scratch against WWE when you have a generation of people that grew up with nothing but WWE. I thought that their growth would be stronger just because they were there and there's opposition. But what I found out is that it's different from like when TNA started in 2005, 2006, 2007. WCW wasn't gone for that long. It had been a few years. And there were people who wanted something different. So I think that TNA, there were more people open to something new, whereas now, number one, there's less wrestling fans than before, which is a key thing. But it's also like this idea that WWE is the major league, and how good could these guys be if they're not in WWE, which, like in the WCW days, nobody ever said the Road Warriors or Kevin Nash or Ric Flair or whatever. If you guys were so good, why aren't you in WWE? Nobody said it because they knew better. Whereas now you'll have people who will watch this and even if it's good, they'll go, well, if Kenny Omega's that good, why isn't he not on Vince's TV? So it's like it's a different mentality to younger people who grew up with there was only WWE and it's the NFL to them. And you can do whatever you want with another football league, whatever, but it's the mentality is it's never going to be the NFL. Whereas in wrestling, we all know that there's these guys who are as good and some who are better than the top guys in WWE, but there's and there's fans who know it too, but the average fan has not, it's kind of like, well, if they were that good, why aren't they on Vince's television?
I had a question.
I will tell you this. I like the NXT show, and I think their in-ring product is better than AEW's.
Depends. Sometimes some shows it is, and some shows it isn't. I think that NXT and AEW to me vary from the week. There's some weeks where NXT is better. There's some weeks where AEW is better. Some weeks AEW's wrestling just blows it away, and then some weeks I think NXT's wrestling is really strong. I think that the worst of AEW is worse than the worst of NXT, but I think the best of AEW is better than the best of NXT.
Right. Okay, and why do you think, before you say that, just real quick, bro, you never interrupt me. See how it feels? Okay, why do you think you said that?
I never interrupt.
He said there's less wrestling fans, right, Dave?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Entertainment's more fragmented, and we don't have that figure. Like when we were growing up, whether it was Bruno Sammartino or Dusty Rhodes or Ric Flair or Hulk Hogan or Randy Savage or Steve Austin and The Rock. There were those people in wrestling. Those were the people that drove wrestling. Jerry Lawler in Memphis. We don't have those people. There's nobody that my friends who are my age. They do know the name Roman Reigns. That aren't fans. They do know the name Roman Reigns. I know that, but it's not like he's a big deal. Whereas 20 years ago or 30 years ago, it's like Ric Flair was Mr. Cool to them. You know what I mean? And they're not wrestling fans. They just thought Ric Flair was Mr. Cool, and Hulk Hogan was larger than life, and Randy Savage was on Slim Jims, and Roddy Piper was a superstar, and then with a year with Austin and The Rock, those guys were as big and really even bigger. And then now, The last guy we had in that was Cena, and I don't think that to the general public he was as big as the guys I mentioned. But the guys now, and it's not even saying that they're not as good, they're just not as big. WWE tries to brand the brand rather than the guy. And I think that my experience when it comes to combat sports, whether it's boxing or MMA or whatever, it's like, you can brand your promotion, the UFC, all you want, but your ups and downs, UFC has tried the same thing. Let's brand our promotion. But, like their ups and downs come based on now Conor McGregor, and to a lesser extent John Jones. It's still the guy.
Right. It's still a star-driven business, right?
Because some guys...
It's a mega-star-driven business.
Right, mega-star-driven business, right.
And the problem is that there's just not... They don't like to build them anymore. And that's bro, you're seeing that over the course of since they started the network, okay? And if you hear guys, you've had Ryback on the show and he tells you, Hunter said to his face, we're not going to have any more John Cenas. And you hear the stories about them not building stars.
That's shooting yourself in the foot.
Exactly.
Well, I'm going to explain. In and of itself is shooting yourself in the foot.
Let me finish. I'm going to explain the problem with that and see if you agree. So you're not building any more. So what they did is the WWE pay-per-views, they used to build to big matches with stars at pay-per-views. They were charging. What was the typical price for WWE pay-per-view back then?
Depends on the era. It got up to close to 60.
Yeah, 30.
Okay, let's just call it $50. Okay, so you're trying to drive people to pay for a $50 pay-per-view, right? So as soon as they started the network and threw all the pay-per-views on that for $10 a month, it's like
devalues the pay-per-views.
Devalues the pay-per-views, and it's like you're not really building to draw money because you're not there's no money to draw. Everybody's watching this stuff anyway. What do you draw? Another $10 subscription? So, come WrestleMania, especially this year more than any that we've seen, is when it comes WrestleMania time and you don't have any stars that you built because you don't like to build stars anymore, you're trying to promote WrestleMania to the world, and it's like you don't have any names to put on the card.
Well, and it's that's why you got to go to the past with Goldberg and Lesnar and Undertaker and Cena, because the guys now are not big enough to headline. I mean, when Bray Wyatt got moved out in place of Bill Goldberg, to me that was one of the most telling moves I've ever seen in wrestling, because it was an admission that a guy from 22 years ago who was in his 50s is a more viable headliner today than a guy that they spent a year with nobody who could touch him, who beat everybody, destroyed everyone in his path, so he could headline with Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. And then a month out, Vince changes it because he realizes that all that build, that people will remember a guy from and care more about a guy from 22 years ago than a guy I built. And I don't know what the behind the scenes conversations are at the highest levels here. Okay, but I can imagine the fact that they keep doing this is Vince is sitting there saying, "Well, look at these guys; they're not over," and the lack of self-awareness, wondering, bro, they're not over because you guys have not refused to build them to that level. It's like, and then it's like the most simplistic case of lack of self-awareness I've ever seen, is that they don't have stars. They think it's everybody else's fault. It's like, guys, you have guys on the precipice of getting them to the next level. And this, bro, at WCW, the glass ceiling was nothing like this. This is, you're inhibiting your business. We had a glass ceiling because they had guys above the glass ceiling, WCW, okay, the thing with WCW was that they did have a glass ceiling for sure, but they had their 4, 6, 8 guys above that glass ceiling. The problem is that those guys wore out, whereas these guys legitimately, there's not one guy, in modern WWE who's a Bill Goldberg. There's not one. So my question is, why do they have a glass ceiling? It's the most common sense question you want to ask. Why do you guys have this glass ceiling? I don't know.
Now,
I don't
Dave,
have an answer.
What is the rationale behind not making megastars? Because they're going to leave one day, or they're going to what is the rationale?
It's always, but you've been in the business long enough. that always happens, and then you've just
of course.
I mean, look at UFC with Rousey. Okay,
yeah,
it's like she left.
Right.
Okay. Now it's like, do you go in there and go, well, golly, Ronda left us after 3 years, so let's not build any women. It's
right.
That's ludicrous.
Right. It is. I don't understand that. Like you said, they're shooting themselves in the foot.
Well, going forward, let me ask you this: these AEW's running in front of no fans. WWE's continue running in front of no fans. What are the? Because I'm sure everybody wants to know this because coronavirus going around. What are the companies doing to test and the protocol, the testing protocols for having?
I don't know what AEW is going to do tomorrow. I know what WWE's done, which is take everyone's temperature, which is really
That's it?
Not enough.
That's it, because you can be asymptomatic for like 5 to 7 days.
Exactly. These guys are rolling the dice. There's a reason the NBA stopped playing. You know what I mean? It's weird to me that when we'll put it this way, the one that was weird to me is when they started closing down the golf tournaments, right? And golf, like, you're not on top of each other. You're far away. If you have like no spectators allowed and just these golfers, and you keep them, you can golf from a long distance, and they're still shutting down. Whereas in wrestling, I mean, you got to be on top of the guy. I mean, you can't have wrestling any other way. You can't keep guys 6 feet apart and do a wrestling match, and you can't, So it's like, of all the things in fighting, it's like you got to be on top of the guy too. So it's like, it's a scary situation.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think? Like, let's say, hypothetically speaking, because we got to start talking about this because wrestlers, especially indie wrestlers, need to start thinking about this now. Okay, like the future is barring any medical breakthroughs yet, because there's been nothing, no vaccine, no cure, no nothing, right?
Yep.
Barring that, what is the future of places running wrestling shows?
I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. It's like it's an ominous threat.
Well, I mean, one thing that's really what's really ominous. I mean, but this goes for people who work in hotels and every line of work now. You sit there and it just breaks your heart because it's like how does our economy work when we're shut down? How does it work? How do we buy food when we're shut down?
Yeah.
And we can't make money, and no one's going to spend money. And people are afraid to spend money that have money, and most people don't even have enough money. I mean, we're going to, I look again like at the independent wrestlers. It's like the only wrestlers who aren't like destroyed by this are the ones under contract to WWE, AEW, and a few others. Whether it be the Ring of Honor guys for now, and whatever, but for the most part, if you're an independent wrestler, I mean, you're going to have to get another job, and and who's hiring this week?
Oh, right. Nobody, bro. The government is talking about giving every American $1,000 check right now.
Yeah, that's nice. But that's going to cover a week or 2 weeks or whatever, and then we're going to be back in the same boat. I mean, I don't got any great solutions right now. I wish I did. I mean, I just kind of like, there's a part of me that's like, it's going to be over, and hopefully soon. Hopefully it's not like a 3-month thing. Hopefully it's a 1-month thing. Like I look at Japan and it's like, it was bad in, the end of February, and now it's coming back, and we're only in mid-March, really, the 16th, and Japan's like starting to come back. So, but they did handle it differently, and we didn't. And but still, it's not all the way back, and we don't know what if there's a relapse. What if there's a relapse in China?
Well, you've been to Japan. It's just that's a far more. The problem with our society, we're not nearly as disciplined as they are.
Yep.
Like if they're telling them what to do, that is a type of society that will adhere to what they're being told to do effectively. We just you saw like the pictures of the concerts, the Post Malone concert, like when everybody's like quarantined, it's just we're just not as disciplined as other countries are like that. But we got 330 million people driven out over a vast area. Japan's what, like 60, and some places.
Japan's like 130 million.
South Korea is 50. That's what I read. How much is Japan?
Japan's about 120, 130 million. Probably close to 130
that's the
million.
thing, though. It's like you got a lot of people concentrated in a smaller area. It's like testing and everything. It's very worse. It's like
especially Tokyo is very population dense, but so it should be worse. But
no, why would it be worse? Because you're in closer proximity to test areas.
What?
The United States, if like you're sick in Paducah, Kentucky, and you have to go all the way to Louisville to get a test. That far to get a test. It's different. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's in some rural places. That's true.
Well, yeah, but that's the problem.
As far as the spread, the more people in a smaller area, it's worse.
Right.